employees are internal clients. HR exists alongside leadership to curate experiences and manage the work product internally to the business. So when we start to think like this, when we start to frame employees as customers, it starts to turn the screws and force you to think about, well, what activities do we do to our external clients that we could bring in-house and start to hold up a mirror and reflect back to our employees? So when you think about marketing, client success, how you optimize and build products, all of these capabilities that we've created, Scrum, Agile, you can start to think about, well, how do we integrate these internally and how do we use them to create amazing employee experiences and keep our employees subscribed to our work product, which is ultimately the goal of HR. I mean, that's my take on it. It's you're managing the work product and you're doing it alongside the leaders and the managers in the company. And there's a lot of threads that we could dive down from that because it gets quite complex when you think about the fact that every employee is a customer.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Freeze with Work podcast. I'm Leah, your host, and today we're going to be discussing how to turn jobs into subscriptions employees love. So we're joined by Josh today. If you want to give yourself a little intro, where you're doing at the moment, how you got to where you are, and give listeners a little bit of something to find out who you are.
Yes, thanks. And thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. As you can tell, I'm from Australia. I've been practicing HR now for a number of years. Actually, not too long, only like 4 or 5, but it feels like an eternity. But I will start from the top and give a brief introduction. So currently I work at a digital marketing agency based in the US as the head of HR. And it's a small company. It's only 50 people or so. And it's been a great experience over the last few years because there's been a lot of opportunity to be very innovative with the HR function, which we'll explore, which has been super fun. So I've kind of done quite a bit of everything with regards to HR in that space. So a bit of hiring, performance management, workforce planning, like all the traditional stuff. But now more recently starting to get more innovative with trying to push the boundaries on redefining kind of what is HR, what is work, how to not just be fixated on how to get the most performance out of people, but how to create workplaces and a workforce where people want to show up and commit and be aligned to what the company's trying to achieve. So that's been very fun. And at the same time, currently with one of my former colleagues, we're starting a startup in the hiring space called Superhired, which is looking to combine, the rise in AI and technology and infuse that in a hiring process, but starting from first principles and not just rushing to a result of, let's use the latest AI tech tools to do hiring quicker and faster, but more so, how do we use AI and proper hiring from first principles and considering hiring as matchmaking and really getting to what is the purpose of hiring and how do we do that sustainably? And I'm looking forward to talking about kind of all those things and how they intersect and how they relate and what AI has to do with it. And there's a lot to unpack. So I'm looking forward to diving deep.
Yeah, and I think then we'll kick some sort of stuff off about where you first started. I think that's something that we were going to delve into at the very start. It might have been at the very core of sort of what you have and why you do what you do now. But you've had quite a unique career journey, haven't you? So being inside the military to now like a founder and also a VP in HR or employee success. So what was that biggest sort of shift of how you came from leading soldiers to leading employees?
Yeah, so I was in the Australian Army for 10 years, roughly. So I joined when I was 18 and I've only been in HR since I left. And it's been a very interesting transition from leading soldiers and being in an environment which is super fast paced, a lot of responsibility and ramifications for, the consequences of decisions and things that are on the line, when we're in that type of environment. So taking a lot of those principles into the private sector and into Tier 11, which is that marketing agency, and now into Superhired, has kind of been the foundational operating system of really how I've approached a lot of my thinking and a lot of how I've been able to now with my colleague challenge a lot of the way things are being done. And I think a pattern that I've noticed amongst many of my peers at the moment that I connect with, HR peers, is that people with diverse backgrounds bring this level of non-institutionalized thinking to a very institutionalized space, which is HR is a great example. Not being tied to this is the way it needs to be and this is the way it's always been done, and how can we push the boundaries and go back to first principles of challenging everything. What is the point of hiring? What does it aim to achieve at the barest level? What is the point of performance management? What is the point of all these very traditional HR, very dry topics? And ultimately, when we understand what it's the outcomes that it's aiming to achieve, we can reverse engineer, well, surely there's a better way to do it with the technology we have and the progressive nature of how work is evolving.
No, that's really interesting because it's like you're looking at it from an outside point of view in a way and having that mindset to go in and just think about the why and pushing those boundaries. Those boundaries is exactly what you do in the military. So it's really like a unique like mindset shift, but it really feel like it fits in well. It's like a good little jigsaw piece that like fits together. So yeah, really interesting. I really like that. Was there any sort of early lessons that you like maybe hit you the hardest when you first started hiring or scaling? What was that sort of, yeah, was it completely different or could you weirdly like slot it together?
Yeah. Honestly, I think a lot of the lessons that military personnel carry is not necessarily tied to the specifics of any given job. Obviously, it depends on what you did in the military in that context, but it's more so this mindset that is cultivated over time to embrace uncertainty, embrace chaos, to lean into it, into risk, to seek to understand and challenge perspectives, because you need to. It seems counterintuitive, but the military, the way it's established, at least in Australia, was all about setting the conditions to delegate authority to people on the ground to be able to make quick decisions. Because on a battlefield, that's ultimately what wins. It's shorter decision cycles so that you can outmaneuver and outpace and outthink an enemy. And in order to create an environment like that, you need to establish transparency, alignment to a vision, alignment to outcomes and objectives. You need to empower people to make decisions quickly and give them the space and the authority to lead and execute. I think when it comes to hiring or just general business, I have always had an inclination and a bias towards wanting to delegate, wanting to offload, not for the sake of avoiding work, but for the sake of empowering others, right? And there is this fun little anecdote. The Germans in World War II, I can't remember the specific term, but they had this terminology or this matrix for how to assess the competency of military officers. And the most dangerous type of officer was one that was highly motivated, high energy, high agency, but not very intelligent and didn't have good discernment and good judgment and didn't seek to understand others' perspectives and bring others into planning. And it's kind of like a bulldozer, right? Like someone that does a lot of work, but tries to take it all themselves and doesn't really go anywhere, and it causes a lot of chaos. Whereas the officers that they would really go after to put in the most complex situations and the ones that were the most valuable officers were ones that were inherently lazy, but very intelligent. And people like that have a bias towards seeking to be curious, seeking to understand how to disassociate themselves from the grunt work and put themselves in a position where they're bringing others in, they're selling a vision, they're creating plans, and they're enabling others to execute their vision of what they want. So you can apply that at any level of an organization, whether you're a CEO or a team leader, or even just an individual contributor. Having a bias towards really being plugged into context and understanding of your situation and what you're aiming to achieve, having North Star outcomes, being very objectives focused, being able to measure that, but then looking to scale yourself out of the situation. I mean, you can only do so much in any given situation, but if you have a team, if you use technology well, if you combine those, then you can drive a lot of value in an organization. And when it comes to hiring, that's first and foremost one of the principles that I think is very important these days. You need to combine both the human element of being in front and interfacing with a human, because that's in my mind, that's the most intimate, most accurate way to engage with someone to understand what they truly want from work. But you do need to use the tools where appropriately to be able to scale that and to be able to do that at a level that's serving the needs of the business and hiring the quantity and the quality of people. So I see people both sides when it comes to recruiting. It's like they either over-index on the tools and the systems and at the expense of the experience of the candidates and the business and what the ultimate goal is of hiring. And then it becomes this race to the bottom of quantity and speed and optimization at the expense of the human experience, or the other way, which is just, they're not leveraging the tools appropriately and they're too in the weeds with regards to a process which isn't scalable and isn't efficient.
Definitely. No, I think that's like really interesting to look at that from firstly the military side of things, like saying all the key elements like transparency and really like hard working, and but then this element of the two sides of it, I think I'm focusing to who you are as a HR person. Like, you can't be one or the other. Like, you have to be ingrained in
No, yeah.
be ingrained in the human side, but also the tools and the sort of ways and working to make it more efficient and more easier for you to work faster. So then you can concentrate more on the human side. So it's playing things. And I think you really answered the things like what sort of food skills you've learned from there as well from the military. It's really pulled into this like mindset shift of what you've learned there and how it's working now in the HR space. It's really, really interesting to see that. Really talked about those different concepts and what that looks like from the inside out. And do you think that's actually helped you like reshape culture and hiring in the way that you do it today?
Yes, definitely. I mean, what I'm talking about is like having an orientation, like a viewpoint where it's based on first principles, and everything should be from first principles. It's the essence of like critical thinking. And I think now more than ever, it doesn't really matter what your profession is in a business, whether you're in HR or you're in marketing or any function. There's so much noise that exists with regards to tools and systems and processes and best practice, and this is how we used to do it, this is how you should do it now, or should I stick to the old way or the new way? I mean, there's gurus everywhere, there's consultants that think differently. Ultimately, what stays true throughout all of that noise is having an understanding of, based on my specific context in the business, what do we need to achieve as a company at the highest level, and being plugged into that. And it doesn't matter whether you're the ultimate leader, the CEO, the C-suite, or you're 2 steps removed. That level of clarity around knowing what the vision of the company is, the purpose of why we exist, what success looks like in a year, broken down into quarters, and then having a disciplined approach to planning towards that as a company, and then knowing how you fit in as a professional within that grand scheme of things, that context. And if we understand that context, then it enables us to, like I explained earlier, be people in the business that can act with autonomy and agency and don't need people to manage us, because we know what the North Star is at all times. And it gives us an element of freedom to be able to move fast. And moving fast is what's important. But everything I just said then has nothing to do with any specific tactical form of advice based on your domain. It's a principle about how you plan and think and operate as a team. So that trying to embody that at all times, and trying to work with leaders to think like that and to plan like that and to be disciplined is difficult, because it takes an investment of time and effort. It carries through when you start thinking like this. And I know this is quite high level, we probably want to narrow and talk about hiring and all that stuff eventually, but it does definitely transcend into, specific domains, because I'm sure a lot of listeners have a specific area of expertise, or they're, in a certain department. And I think getting that level of clarity around why does your department and team exist? What is your mission within the mission? And if you know that, then it suddenly opens up a world of possibilities on what you possibly could be focused on, what solutions you could be chasing. And then that then opens you up to what questions you should be asking in the company to achieve those. Yeah. So
what, when, how, all those sort of starting things, what we need to achieve, how can we do this? When do we need to do it by?
yeah.
That forms like really good clarity, vision, goals, success, which is only going to help in the reason of why you're hiring these people. Because if you don't know the goals, mission, success of the business as a whole, then you don't know why you're going to be hiring a random software engineer or a marketing person, because you don't know the goals of the business. So you don't know, oh, actually, we're going to be launching a new product. Oh, that's why we're going to be doing that. We're going to be doing a full new influencer marketing campaign. Oh, that's why we're hiring that person. And why is that? Oh, because we need more revenue in this specific product. So that links with that. And it's like finding out that whole thing helps the whole vision, and ultimately comes back to why you need to hire these people. Because if you don't know the goal and the mission, and then you don't know why you're hiring these people. So it gets to a point where you're just then hiring for a numbers game rather than to fit into the mission and value of the company.
Yeah, 100%. Or you're hiring as an order taking mechanism, and someone's told you to hire and you have no idea why or the context, and you're just taking orders. Whereas the people doing the hiring, doesn't matter what term, title, whatever, however it looks, someone's doing it. Someone should be doing it. Mm-hmm. Whoever's doing it needs to understand that context, because that context forms the basis of how you market and sell and attract the right people to the position. And we talked about, this work as a product methodology, this way of thinking as work as something that people subscribe to, like any other product that you sell to your customers externally, to your external clients, products or services. Those things are what people obsess over in a business. We have entire departments that are built to manage them. Client success is a capability that exists to ensure the success of the relationships with externally facing clients. Employees are internal clients. HR exists alongside leadership to curate experiences and manage the work product internally to the business. So when we start to think like this, when we start to frame employees as customers, it starts to turn the screws and force you to think about, well, what activities do we do to our external clients that we could bring in-house and start to hold up a mirror and reflect back to our employees? So when you think about marketing, client success, how you optimize and build products, all of these capabilities that we've created, Scrum, Agile, you can start to think about, well, how do we integrate these internally, and how do we use them to create amazing employee experiences and keep our employees subscribed to our work product, which is ultimately the goal of HR. I mean, that's my take on it. It's you're managing the work product, and you're doing it alongside the leaders and the managers in the company. And there's a lot of threads that we could dive down from that, because it gets quite complex when you think about the fact that every employee is a customer. You're like, shit, if I have a 50-person company, I've got 50 individual internal clients that I need to create a work product for. And that's this paradigm, and it really wakes us up internally. And it's like, wow, there's a lot of work to be done.
Definitely. So what would this, let's delve into it, employment as a subscription mean in practice?
In practice, I think what it looks like is, first and foremost, understanding that with any client, whether it's externally or internally now with our employees, in order to service them, you need to understand them, and you need to build relationships, and you need to conduct what I harp on about endlessly, which is discovery. And discovery needs to be done continuously, and it needs to be done very intentionally. And It's an activity that is intentionally designed to uncover the needs, the pain points, the desires of your employees, to be able to map what opportunities exist for enabling them to be able to do what they need to do to further the business's goals. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's like being plugged into the employees so deeply that you know exactly what they want from work, what they want out of it, which is also dynamic and that shifts. So it's something that you always need to be asking the questions of, what do you want? How has that changed from last quarter? Do you feel enabled and empowered to do your job? Tell me stories of when you have felt empowered versus when you haven't. Extrapolate this data, mine the data, and do that continuously as a function. And you use all that information then to design internal products which can improve the employee experience.
Yeah, I think it's one of them. And it's like they're not just committing once that like a client is. Obviously they're committing every day, but yeah, they're choosing to renew every single day at your company. So you're constantly subscribing. It's not just a one-off subscription or one-off payment that you see come out once a month like Spotify. Like you're committing every single day to that. So they're going to be sat there asking, is this worth my time? Am I valued? Like, am I seen? Especially in remote environments, it's maybe even more difficult to make sure that people feel subscribed to their role, because it's, if there's a moment of not being seen or heard in that sort of environment, it can definitely fall off a quick cliff much faster than if it was sort of in the office.
It is a completely different ballgame, I think, when you can contrast fully remote versus fully in office. You definitely need to be much more intentional in a fully remote environment on picking up on cues and mining that information. Also, this consideration that everyone is completely different, and
Yeah.
the work product isn't for everyone. And the work product is also always shifting. The business, the environment that it operates in is in flux. And what the business needs to operate effectively and to grow and to achieve its mission is something that not all people will want to subscribe to at all times. And I think acknowledging that is a good segue into understanding how to be intentional with hiring and very intentional with the conversations in the business around, it's not a bad thing if there's a mismatch. It just is what it is. And there's no such thing as necessarily a bad person in a company. It's more so there's a miscast and there's a misfit and there's a mismatch between what the work product is and what it demands and what it can offer and what a subscriber, an employee, a human wants at that point in their life, which are both dynamic and they're both changing and both evolving. It's actually more complex than our external clients, because our external clients are businesses typically that have a very clear set purpose and mission, and a lot of services service that entity. Whereas in the business, you're servicing many entities, which are individual humans, which have families and goals and aspirations and all this other stuff that's affecting them that we don't even know about. So when we can understand at that level what our people want, then it paves the way for very, very interesting conversations around, in a hiring process, what do you truly want from work? And is this job that you're potentially going to subscribe to the right one? Or in the business, it's, hey, 6 months ago, you said that the work product you wanted to subscribe to was X, and you said that you were getting it, but now the work product shifted a bit, and the job description and what we demand from you is changing. So we need to talk about that. And also, it seems now that your risk tolerance has changed because you've had a baby, and you want this and you want that, and so understanding and having conversations that track and acknowledge these shifts is incredibly important, because it unearths the gaps, and it allows healthy conversations to follow around, is this the right subscription for both of us? And if it is, how do we improve it? If it isn't, how do we find you the right subscription?
Yeah, exactly. Like if people are leaving, it's not like, how are we making them stay? It's okay, why is their experience not worth subscribing or renewing anymore? It's just like looking at one's pic. Yeah. And I think, and if jobs are subscriptions, what features and updates do people expect?
I think that's a inherently it's a very subjective question, because it, as we've said, it constantly shifts. But I think there are there are there are consistent themes in terms of what people expect in certain industries, and what features and what people expect. Uh, I mean, in certain features, and in certain industries, in certain companies, in certain countries, right? Like I think there are correlations. So understanding that as a baseline is very important for a company. And it goes back to what we were saying before about understanding your work product and what you're offering as a company. And I'm not talking about, oh, these are our values. They're on a piece of paper. They live in our wiki. Um, right. Like I'm talking about like talking to people in the business to actually understand the reality of what you're offering, so that during a hiring process, you can be so incredibly polarizing and transparent with what your work product is, that it's a form of sourcing in and of itself. If I say to you, hey, here is a 3-page, very comprehensive, intense job description, which doesn't even look like a job description, but it's a complete and utter deep dive into what the path and life is like at this company. And also, here are some other materials like a nice job presentation and other information. You're going to self-select out, or you're going to double down. Typically, you're going to be like, that's not the subscription I want. Or you're going to be like, that's all the features that I want for me. Bringing that to the hiring process has been a bit of a game changer, because now, before we've even had our initial conversations with people, they're basically rocking up to the interviews knowing all the basics, and they're filled with energy and enthusiasm and discretionary effort to do all the other data collecting activities that we want to do. Whereas traditionally, what do we use to really communicate the context of this matchmaking? We use 1-page resumes and CVs, which are very surface level, that don't tell us anything about what a person wants from work and their features and what they want to subscribe to. And we use a 1-page JD, a job description, that is just incredibly surface level. So if you're using both these surface level artifacts to try and create this ignition of connection, it's underserving that as a philosophy. So when we look at the hiring process, but it's also in the business as well, it's a matchmaking endeavor. It always is. It's the business and the person. And the business needs to take ownership over understanding what it offers, what it is, and being realistic and transparent. And the person needs to be able to do the self-discovery to even understand what they want to subscribe to in the first place. But make sure that they're transparent and they're providing that level of information, because a lot of people still don't know what they truly want from work. And it can be a fairly like daunting exercise for some people, because a lot of people don't know what they want from work. But I think when that question's typically asked, the usual response is to regurgitate a very specific career path, not what you truly want intrinsically from work, which is jobs to be done. Like, I want security and safety, and I want, these type of things which are easier to think through, rather than I want to be an astronaut, right? Or a very specific. If someone says I want to be an astronaut, what they're really saying is I want features that are aligned to risk taking, intense problem solving, status and prestige. And so there's correlations between being an astronaut and potentially doing other positions. So that's kind of an exercise that we help candidates go through as well.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I think it comes down to, as you said, like each person, country is completely different, but it's that like clarity and transparency of, if I'm going to subscribe to you, am I going to get the best out of what I want as a person? And am I going to grow? Am I going to see my career change and evolve if I subscribe to you? Because It's a very emotional thing, isn't it? Applying for jobs, doing interview processes, getting the job in the final stage. Like, it's very emotionally challenging because you've got to put yourself out there constantly. It's a lot of energy. Each one that you want to dedicate, that you really want to have that job, but then you've got an interview like an hour later and you're telling them that you really want that job. And it's so hard to like take a moment to pause and think, okay, now the next one, and then fully dedicate yourself to that one. And I think the interview process is really tough when you're trying to acknowledge yourself what you want, because one company could be offering, for example, like yearly bonuses. And at the time, that could be great because you're looking to get a house. So that's going to help you get something like that. But this other one is career growth. And in the next 5 years, you'll be on £50,000 more than you were. It's like, what what do you look at now, which is more beneficial, but also you want both the jobs. So it's one of them, isn't it? It's very emotional, and it's hard to know at the time what you want because you're trying to present to the person on the other end that you are the best choice for them. So
Right. And I think that's why it's important to, I mean, it reinforces the importance of both sides doing their part. Like, as a candidate applying for a job, how could you possibly be in a position where you can convey enthusiasm and excitement and commitment and speak to why you would be good for this role if you don't know what the true work product is like that you're potentially subscribing to, right? If you're going off a one-page job description or just vanity information, surface level stuff, like, you're going to sit there and you're going to have to feel like you're tiptoeing your way through it.
yeah,
So, my advice to candidates is, when you're going through an interview process, you need to be asking the questions that unveil the true nature of what that work product is and what they're offering. And you need to go in there with an understanding of, this is what I want from work, and being okay with communicating that up front. And that can be difficult because in many instances, companies are looking for, without doing the due diligence and truly understanding what they need, they default to looking for, we want someone that is an extrovert, that comes on the interview, that I can be friends with quickly, that has a decent resume, that has this level of tenure, these credentials, and this experience. And it's very surface level stuff, and they don't know why they want that. They just say that they want it because that's what the industry kind of demands, and that results in homogeneity in companies, which basically means you end up hiring the same person, right? And what we do know is that having a diverse workforce is incredibly powerful when it comes to neurodivergent thinking, and people that come from different backgrounds and different experiences, and people that present differently on interviews versus people that may be a bit more introverted but incredibly talented at executing their technical trade and function. So it's complex, and it needs to be treated in a complex manner because we're dealing with, like you said, emotional humans, and you can't force this very emotional endeavor into a box that is focused on speed and surface level information and surface level discovery, and the over indexing and overuse of AI tools to do the human to human stuff. Like, let AI do the AI stuff. Humans should be the one that are doing this emotionally led discovery. And a lot of companies are diverging away from that. A lot of tools and systems and processes are playing the game and perpetuating the game that is currently broken and is zero sum. It's lose-lose. It's a race to the bottom, and it's destroying the experience for candidates because not only do they need to present themselves emotionally time and time and time again, but they're being forced into a corner to apply to hundreds of jobs, even to get a foot in to get an interview. And it's because of all this AI, these AI tools are perpetuating this problem. And the response by companies is to double down and to use AI tools to combat that. Ultimately, what's fueling this drive to start Superhired, because there needs to be an outlet. There needs to be a return to first principles of, like, let's do away with this AI first nonsense and get humans back in the driving seat, doing what should always have been emotional led human to human discovery of what people want to subscribe to, and understanding the person and matchmaking based on what they want to the right opportunity. And it's taking the human out of it has resulted in much more noise and a complete dilution of the metrics, the objectives that I was talking about before, maintaining orientation to what is the point of hiring. The point of hiring is to matchmake. It's to put the right person in the right opportunity. It's like that simple, but that's getting harder and harder to do. It's getting more and more frustrating. It's getting more and more expensive. It needs to change. So,
Yeah, and I think like that's exactly what's fueled you to want to create Super Hired. I guess we can discuss this while we're on the topic, and then we can delve back into maybe more in your like hiring process and that sort of framework. So yeah, what I guess is this what has inspired you to want to create Super Hired? Like this is kind of the problem you're trying to solve.
yes, in a nutshell, definitely. It's like I think like I've been recruiting now for 3 to 4 years. So I was in the trenches doing the recruiting, made all the rookie mistakes, and got to a point where I had a system that started to work quite well. And it was contrary to what a lot of people were talking about in regards to what should be working or what is the future, which is use an applicant tracking system, put in all these keyword searches, pump, pump the market, get lots of leads, thin them out with auto this, auto that, AI that. And then I started getting into that, and I think I don't know what the catalyst was for me to make this realization, but it was definitely a big part of it was definitely the candidate experience and how much that had just degenerated. I mean, I started hiring in a very bespoke, very intimate manner, which worked well, but it got harder and harder the more that AI came into the picture. ChatGPT, I don't know how many years it's been now, but I was hiring pre-ChatGPT. ChatGPT came out and I was like, wow, this is a great unlock. I'm going to use it to make my job as a recruiter easier, but I'm still going to maintain that human touch and that connection. The problem is the more and more these tools have advanced, the more and more people have been using them to replace those human touches. And the more and more it's been institutionalized and expected that there is less and less human touch. And as a result, there's very negative sentiment in the market, particularly around candidates that have tried to get a job, trying to land a job for 3-6 months that are very qualified for certain positions that just simply can't make it work. So I think a combination of seeing the power of human to human, human-led, AI augmented approaches, and also just seeing the degeneration of the overuse of these tools. And I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how to do both, because it can be a win-win. We can use AI, we can use tools, we can use these systems, but it should be something that augments and powers a human-led approach. And that's really the essence of Superhired. It's huge focus on discovery. Like I talked about, slowing things down, doing the matchmaking, really understanding the context of the job and the company, then transitioning to really understanding the context of the human. What you've got there is two very, very comprehensive data sets when you've done that, which enter AI now is very ripe for the augmentation of these tools, because it can help with pattern recognition and sifting through information at scale. So I think it's just knowing when to bring it in and not over relying on it, but experimenting, but remaining true to the North Star of what is hiring. And, ultimately it's about the matchmaking and the quality, and it's about long-term fit. So I'm not in the business of trying to force candidates into a job within 30 days. I very much tell our clients, don't expect to hire in 2 months, because that's not going to happen. If that's what you want, then we're not the right fit. I'm very much about making hires done right the first time that are going to last in the business long term, that are going to contribute, add immense value, and pretty much raise the entire team to a new level. And that's requires work to be able to do that consistently.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're at the forefront of that, understanding that you're actually probably going to help the company who are looking to hire actually question themselves a little bit more and be like, oh, wait, why isn't this such a quick turnaround? All those sort of what, why, hows again, but it's making them question themselves of why can't I have such a quick turnaround? And unless you are maybe one of those big names like Google or whichever, who are having constant applications and probably some of the best, like they still have to filter through thousands and thousands of applications for one role. The amount of applications that will probably even be seen for that first hiring process is minimal, but people are trying to have a go to get in. But yeah, it's crazy the turnaround that people expect when you hear some stories of HR leaders trying to do a turnaround of a week for a role, like
Yeah. That's systemic of a bigger issue. If there's someone telling me I need to hire someone next week, granted, there are situations where there's emergencies and things happen. And I think building resilience into your ability to source talent is a very competitive advantage. And I think HR leaders and managers, even of teams, need to be clued into how to mitigate risk when it comes to key person risk, like key people in your team. If they just, unfortunately leave the business very quickly or something happens, being tapped into a pool of talent which you can engage with, for example, a community or a network. I'm not talking about these ghost applications or this BS where you're just kind of keeping people warm for the sake of it. Like that just doesn't work. I'm talking about like curating your own community of experts or being tapped into communities that already exist where talent hangs out. Like that is a better solution to dealing with those situations rather than trying to run a process that should take 6 to 8 weeks. And it should take that long for a reason, because you need to be rigorous and you need to be discovery led and you need to be doing all of this, this matchmaking and having these conversations. If you try to expedite that, you're just going to take risk. You're taking on risk. That's all you're doing. And I don't advocate to business leaders and to our clients that this needs to be slow for the sake of being slow. There's a reason why it's slow, because you need to be very intentional. And in order to do it intentionally, it takes a bit of time. It takes work. It takes resource. It takes commitment from not just the HR teams, but the business. Leaders need to be interviewed. People need to be contributing to the process. It's not just a HR accountable and solely responsible function. It's HR accountable and leading it, the whole business mobilized to support them. And if you can dial it in, you can get it done quickly. But for many businesses, their hiring is very lackluster, and it doesn't take a very big peek under the hood to see why they're stuck in this cycle of people coming in and leaving and coming in and leaving, which destroys the morale of the team, as well as just being a leaky bucket of just money that gets poured onto a fire. It's astonishing for me. It's right. Yeah. Training is a whole nother topic as well. It's like,
I was going to say, if you're hiring next week, it probably meant that you were meant to hire a month ago. And people have already going back to the subscription model, is that they probably unsubscribed about 3 months ago. So
that's a very good point. Yeah. People have already checked out mentally before they formally hit the cancel button.
exactly. And what are some of those early signs? Is there anything that in this sort of model that are really good indicators that people have unsubscribed? And how do you sort of make sure people are going to unsubscribe at the end of the day? People do have changes in their life. People just want a new challenge, like something as simple as that. Is there any way to sort of find out those early indicators, those early signals, so that you can make sure that people, or if they can be, subscribing every day?
Yes. Talk to your people.
Yeah. Communication
Like, it's qualitative. I'm sick of just this overuse of polling and surveys, and it's like, I can understand at scale in certain circumstances and at certain intervals that's where it's intentional. You commit to pulsing and surveys, and they can yield good insights, but you're not going to pick up on signals as clearly as if you're getting on and you're intentionally talking about these drivers of why people are at their workplace that they're at and why they're subscribing to the product, and understanding the journey, the path that they're on as a human, and how their life is affecting their choices of why they are subscribed and how that may change in the future. That's the most proactive, most data rich, most intimate way to build a relationship with a human, which nurtures trust, which creates this reinforcing loop, this flywheel of, I trust Josh as my leader, my manager. He's got my back. He seeks to understand my perspective of my life. He's actively interested. He gets me and why I work here and why I want to work here. I'm going to tell him. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to tell him, hey, my situation's changing. I'm looking like I'm going on a trajectory where I'm likely to unsubscribe unless I get this, this, and this, or it's inevitable. I just need to unsubscribe. So, and that informs gaps. It informs leaders of how they can take action to re-engineer the experience in the work product. There may be systemic issues across the company. If you do this level of discovery, we're going through a round of discovery right now at Tier 11, this marketing agency, where we're talking to everyone in the company very intentionally, mapping out all these things, and we're going to look at the data and map out consistent correlations like across the company. And some of that will inspire collective action around, as a company or for a team, what product or how can we build something or tweak the experience for the collective signals. As an example would be, for our media buyers and our marketing teams, report writing is a drain. It's low value. It's not why they are in the job. Many people are giving us that signal. It's not why they subscribe to this work. How can we automate that or delegate that to another capability? That's something that we're collectively interested in. Whereas one media buyer may have a very specific, nuanced signal of his or her circumstances changing, or, for example, someone's, recently I talked to a media buyer last week who has been in the seat for a number of years now, and slowly their expectation of growth and promotion and more responsibility is becoming more and more evident as something that they want to subscribe, they want to feature in this product. So can we give that to that individual? How can we create that path? Does it even exist? Is it a feature of the product? Maybe it's not. It's not looking like it is. We've had that candid conversation and they've said, thank you for being very transparent and open and honest. If it's not the right fit, it's not the right fit. And that the best thing for that company and the best thing for that person is that we help them find an opportunity that exists where that product is what they want to sign up for. It's best for the company. And with that mindset, we've had people come back. That's a beautiful thing. I'm talking to 2 people right now that have previously worked at this agency that are putting in applications to return because now there's a match after they've been away for a couple of years. They left under certain pretenses because the situation changed. And I've been very upfront with where we're at now and it aligns. So why not? They were good operators, and it's having this abundance mindset that good business is win-win. Good employee management leadership relationships are win-win. And when you treat it like that, when you treat people as humans and not just inputs to a production or an assembly line, you treat them like humans that have their aspirations, their own nuance, their journey, and you seek to understand that, then it allows you to engineer the experience that keeps them there and engaged and happy and committing effort. Or alternatively, it puts you in a position where you can help them be better somewhere else. So it's a good cause. And I think it's thinking along these lines is hard to come by in a lot of companies, but that's kind of what the overall vision and mission, as well as it's imbued in super hired as well. It's hiring is just the start. It's just the entry point. Like, this continues on in the company, this type of thinking. It's throughout the entire customer journey.
Yeah, no, really good. I actually think having this like subscription mindset helps you like draw away in a way, like the emotional side of things, because you are creating like a feature, an update, and a product. Because then you're thinking, okay, what is my ideal subscription? It then makes you think in a little bit of a different way. Sometimes when you're sat here and you're like, yeah, everything's good actually. But then when you pull yourself away from it and think, well, what's the market rate for my type of salary? What products in the industry could make my job better? And like just actually taking a step away from it and looking like at it at this point of view, I think it really helps it decompartmentalize what is currently happening and the features that you could opt into. So yeah, I really think it's a really good method for like the HR leader, the manager, and also the employee, because it gives you an option to just look at it in a really different light. And I think that will only help the company and yourself understand that, yeah, this is either a continuation of features that are going to be added and updates, or is the end of the subscription. And each like offer and suggestion that's going to happen at the end of that is going to be the best for the company and the employee. So yeah, I really do like it. It's really opened up my mind to think in that sort of way. I really do like it. And initially, we spoke about prior to this call, you have like this hiring process, this framework. I don't know if this is sort of similar to the subscription model or it's a little bit different, but in this hiring framework, do you want to walk us through this? I know we're nearly at the hour, but I think it would be good to delve into this. It's gone so fast. And I think it was why candidates never feel like a number. I think that was what we'd spoken about.
We've covered pretty much all the ground that goes into this system that we're constantly iterating. And it's founded on all the principles we've talked about. It's considering hiring as a matchmaking endeavor. And I can walk you through from start to finish kind of how we approach it from a high level, and we can kind of dive into any of the specific parts. But when we start an engagement, whether it's with clients externally or in the business, it actually doesn't matter. It also doesn't really matter the size of the company, the complexity of the company, because we're all operating from first principles here. And that's an important thing to remember. It's that these are principles that can be practiced and can be deployed really anywhere. What's going to change is how you do it and the tactics and who's involved and the more nuanced methods. But the principle to start off with is understanding that there's two areas that you really, really need to get clarity on in terms of a data perspective. And we need to look at it like that because we need to distill it down to what it truly is. It's matchmaking, it's collecting information on the company and the candidate and understanding, is there a fit between these two entities? And that's it distilled down very scientifically. When it goes to the company side of things, we host a variety of different workshops, discovery sessions, communications, qualitative, quantitative surveys, but mostly it's qualitative. It's talking. It's talking to the HR leaders, the general leaders of capability that they're hiring for. It's talking to people in the team. It's understanding the business context from all levels, not just what are the core values and the purpose and mission of the company, but what is the core values and the purpose and mission of the team that they're in. We'll use Tier 11 as an example. If we're hiring, again, a media buyer for marketing pod 3 out of 5, I want to understand, yes, what is the nuance of Tier 11 as a company? What is it like to live there? What is the experience right now? What is the differential, like the gap between what leadership think they have and what they actually have? And not only that at the high level, but what is that in the team? And that's really, you're really in this discovery research phase. You're like doing reconnaissance. You're talking a lot to people. You're collecting all the transcripts. You're using AI to help you make sense of them and to catalog them and to go through them and to really become embodied and very integrated in the company and the team. You need to be. Otherwise, you simply can't perform the rest of the actions that come from here. So that lends itself quite well to people that are already in the business because you know your business naturally. You need to work even harder if you're a freelancer or you're an external consultant or you're a talent sourcing agency. You need to work double as hard because you need to start from zero and get to a point where you know the business exceptionally well. And once we've done that due diligence, it usually takes us 2 weeks of lots of calls and sitting down and going through the data. We then create a whole bunch of different artifacts like documents that help the remainder of the process. So we create what's called a job map, which is a very comprehensive description. It's like a JD on steroids. It's like the accountabilities, the responsibilities, the core competencies of the role, the skill sets, the growth path. Like it's solid and it's meaty and it's based on all of the discovery. We circulate that back for feedback from all the stakeholders. 9 times out of 10, there's some minor tweaks. They give us a thumbs up. That job map is the most foundational document because that is the Bible of the role. That is, in essence, exactly what the work product is and offers and what we demand from the position, from the seat. And it's just a really well-rounded articulation of all of that stuff. And what we do with that document is we use that to create marketing materials to then sell and position the product in the market. So we'll create a job advertisement, which is like another 3-page, written in the tone and the voice and the style of the brand. It's branded, it's on brand, it's colored, we've got a pitch deck. We're treating it like an external service, just as you would try to land a client. You want to sell the benefits, the features, all the components about why someone should work for you, but also what is a good client? What does a good fit look like? What does a bad fit look like? Being very polarizing, very transparent, and leading with that throughout sourcing. Throughout sourcing, we leverage both job boards, headhunting, mostly headhunting these days because of the saturation and how bad the job boards have gotten. It's a process that's we're in the midst of trying to solve. But
yeah, another topic.
Yeah, the sourcing piece is the most difficult part. That's a whole different podcast. But the premise here is that we really push the product hard and transparently. And when we get the candidates in, we then transition to a combination of qualitative interviewing, deep interviewing. Interviewing is still very important, but doing it in an intentional, in a structured way. And we send out a work drivers exercise, which is an exercise that the participant, the candidate does that helps them articulate all the things that we've talked about, the jobs to be done that they want from work. So do I rank, it's a ranking card game. Do I rank risk over stability? Do I rank compensation over growth? So it forces candidates to think about how do I place and prioritize these things amongst interviewing, amongst technical simulations. But it's all bespoke because the situation is always different between roles and between companies. So we actually designed the whole end-to-end interviewing process based on the circumstance. And then from there, it's pretty traditional. We do salary benchmarking up front. We need to be very clear about what the market rates are for certain roles, particularly what the client is asking for. Clients typically will always want a unicorn, right? Like, I want this, and this, in this one person. It's like, well, if you do find that, it's going to cost you a hell of a lot of money. So let's try to, decompartmentalize like what these things are. And maybe it's 2 roles, and we do all that due diligence with the clients. But that's really the process and the playbooks that we're running at the moment. As you can tell, it's just a lot of data gathering. It's a lot of mining of information, and AI is kind of weaved throughout that whole process in a systemized way. And that's one of the tools that we're building at the moment is how do you implement these principles in a manner that is somewhat systemized and has AI bolted onto it to help where it should, but not to replace those important human touch points.
I really like that. The job map thing is like so cool. I think that's such a unique element to having like a bespoke interview, like transition from that get go all the way through to the hiring process is really nice. And I like this like qualitative interviewing that you keep saying, like qualitative, because I did psychology at university and I love all like this type of thing. And I think that it scales back to, in a way, yeah, you are really analyzing all of the data. You're having a look at why it's going to work, and because you've done that data led approach, and it's only going to help you get the best out of who you're looking for. I also think with this sort of unicorn that you were discussing, if people are going to hire someone and they have 100% skill set, I often feel like they'll probably unsubscribe a lot faster because it's like they've not got room to challenge and change, and there's no stretch. There's the high performers, so they'll feel like they're not getting like as much encouragement because they're constantly like on that front, or they're like, oh well, I'm at the top of my salary band here. I've got everything. I'm top skill set. It seems like they've not got the challenge. So sometimes the unicorns aren't the best people because they haven't got room for improvement, and they'll just kind of be like feeling under challenged in a way. And I think it's like you should maybe have a look at that like 80 to 90% markup, maybe rather than the 100%, because they're going to have room for improvement. They're going to bring some new ideas that maybe you didn't know you also needed as well. And I think it's having the room to be able to let people challenge you when they join that business. Oh, I've seen that you want to do this. What about if we did this? And it's quite nice to have that little bit of bounce back sometimes. But I think it all fits into this main the research that you've done, the discovery, that continuous working, because maybe the media buyer that you wanted to hire yesterday will not be the same as the one you want to hire in 6 months' time, because through that continuous discovery and it's just continuous work, making sure you're constantly on top of it. I think it's definitely changing, and it's really good to see that through this you are then maybe if you are hiring in 6 or 12 months, then you refresh that process. Things might have changed economically, culturally, like there's a lot, success, business, mission, values, goals, everything can have changed. And it's good to constantly keep discovering that. And I think you've hit the head on it with this hiring process. So
That's why I've honestly drunk this Kool-Aid so much that it's I throw out all preconceived notions now. Like it's just there's no assumptions. It's like I'm not going to assume anything. I discover it, right? It's like even with the unicorn, it's like I don't know what a unicorn wants. They could, I just have no idea. Like it could be the right fit. It might not be. And it's the only point that you get clarity is if you do that level of discovery where you get to a point where you're confident in the decision. And you're right, like hiring a unicorn seems sexy because they're a unicorn, but you need to understand what a unicorn wants. The same way you need to understand what a donkey wants, right? Like, I don't want to donkey, but you know what I mean? Like, not to say that humans are donkeys. Like, nah, we're all unicorns in our own special way. But right, like it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because what made someone a unicorn is largely the context as well of how they became a unicorn. So it's understanding that context. What enabled the unicorn to be a unicorn? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, from each individual person's CV or experience, they are going to be a unicorn in their own entire way. So for somebody, they are going to be a unicorn. It's just finding the match to make that happen.
It's more like how do we leave that off the table and not even think about that and be fixated towards creating unicorns through matching the right person with the right role? Internal unicorn creation assembly line. That's what we want to create in the company.
That's it. Final statement.
Yeah.
Just closing that then, I guess, as we have talked about so much here, I absolutely loved it, going from your intro to your story, the military background, pulling that into your people first hiring and what that looks like, employment as a subscription, and then this framework, and of course, super hired, which is fueled from everything that you've discovered in your life there. Is there anything, maybe some key takeaways here? So one thing that leaders can do tomorrow to reduce employee unsubscription.
Well, I think I've harped on about it so much, but it would be starting to be intentional about discovery and research Teresa Torres's continuous discovery habits. She's a product leader, and reading her book is what flicked a switch for me. So I would encourage every leader to read that book. It's product focused, but you can apply it to any situation where you are a curator of experiences. And as a leader and a manager, you are a curator of an experience for your people. And doing discovery is the first way to understand what that experience should look like to keep people engaged. What experience do people crave? What experience is the reality? getting that information is through discovery, and it's through talking to people and making the effort to be intentional with those discussions. Not just, yeah, I've got a one-on-one scheduled and that's it. Because I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they divulge into fighting fires and in the business reactive crap that isn't deep intentional discovery around these drivers of work. So be intentional about it, do some research, become a discovery expert.
Yeah. And just continuously be curious. Like, what's the new thing you're going to find? Yeah. And I guess then I know it is being curious and being discovery, but is there just like one habit that maybe every hiring manager should build? If they could build it today, or if they could build it in the next 6 months, is there one thing that maybe has really helped you, or something that stand out?
I think it ties back to what I talked about initially about these principles of like how to generally, what I generally carried over from the military. It's this orientation towards critically thinking and challenging the status quo. And is it achieving the ultimate North Star, like this outcome of what I think I'm doing should lead to? Like if I'm doing something in hiring, doesn't matter how big or small, how mundane, whatever it is it leading to matchmaking, to discovery, to getting the right person in the right seat, and consistently evaluating the activities that you do as a hiring manager, as a leader, and is it taking us away or towards that North Star? But you need to understand the North Star first. So that in itself requires discovery. So it's all discovery. I say that word about 50 times
No,
every
I
day.
really thank you so much. I honestly feel like that gave was like the start to the end of how to combat this in a completely new light. And thank you so much. You've honestly been amazing. I've learned so much in this hour, and I know the listeners will. I'm really excited to really delve into these little snippets, and I'll share that with you, the listeners, as this is released. So thank you so much again, Josh. I know it's probably quite late for you now.
Dinner time.
Yeah, getting into the day for me.
Cool.
But yeah, thanks again. You've been an amazing guest. I'm really excited for this one to air, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, Leah. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Bye.